Started. So, welcome to Laughter Lab. And today I go, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have you. And believe it or not, you are the first guest. Woo! This is an honor. I mean, this is fantastic. So, how about we start with you telling me and everybody else? I know about you, but some folks do not. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do?
Okay, well, I am Geoff or Geoff McLachlan, and I am the founder and CEO of Professionals at Play. And I travel around the country working with students, organizations, charities, doing either MC work. Actually, that's not the primary. My primary is doing speaking. So I go in and I work with organizations, and we come in and we play, and we actually have joy and laughter and communication, and we do activities. And it's amazing how quickly you watch groups who go, oh man, this is an icebreaker. We don't want this, to, oh my gosh, they're laughing, they're engaged, they're having fun, they're sharing information with themselves, about themselves with others. And it completely breaks down the walls. Like joy and laughter and play are the things that break down barriers between people faster than anything else. And if you can incorporate those into your daily life, you live longer, you're a better person, you're better to be around, you put positive energy out into the world. All the good things that we can possibly imagine all stem from joy, laughter, and play.
Oh man, this is amazing. I mean, just hearing that and like that inspires me just to listen to that. But I want to hear from you, like
Mhm.
because you mentioned play and laughter. What like role has laughter played in your life? And I mean, like not just now, but like in general. Like maybe I'm interested. I'm curious about was that a big thing in your family? What was that something maybe when you were growing up? Was there somebody that like there was a funny person in the family? Somebody that like I don't know share jokes or whatever so I just kind of want to hear like what role laughter play in your life and what was it like
Mhm.
growing up.
Well, I'm very lucky that I got to grow up when I did, where I did, and to whom I did. I kind of like to tell people I hit the genetic lotto because my grandfather, my great grandfather, bought a couple of miles of beachfront property and like 300 acres in the 1940s in the middle of nowhere, like on this tiny little lake that had literally nobody around it. Like all it was just like little farms and whatnot, and he wanted to open a resort where people would come and make memories and have fun. And so he was kind of a character. He was a riot. Like people loved him. He was a practical joker. Like they ended up putting a golf course behind their house. And so he ended up like he would laugh. He played jokes on the golfers. Like he had these golf balls that he would tie to a string and then drive a nail into the ground. So the golfers would come and hit the ball, and the ball wouldn't go anywhere. And they're like, "Wait, what? I just hit the ball!" And then they'd realize that the ball was tied to a string in the ground. That was him. He was kind of that guy. So he was just a character, right? And so I think I came by it naturally, having people like him in my life. And I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I wish I could say, childhood was perfect. It's not. Everybody has stuff, right? And for a while, I got really mad. I was really an angry, like I had some anger issues. And right around the sixth grade, I happened to have a teacher. My sixth grade teacher is Mr. Bronson, and I remember he recruited me for a couple of reasons. He recruited me for track and cross country, and I was a pretty chubby kid. I was not like the physical specimen that I am now. Not that I'm a physical specimen. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but I was a pretty chunky little kid, and he wanted me to come out and join the cross country team. And I was like, "What's cross country?" And he's like, "Well, we're gonna run." And I said, "That doesn't sound like fun." And he goes, "No, you'll like it. It'll be great." And I was like, "Okay," because he was my teacher. So I was like, "I guess I'll just go out and try it." And it sucked. I didn't like it. It was terrible. But he made it engaging. He made it fun. And he was one of those teachers that I had to have outbursts and I get mad and like I couldn't do something. I get really frustrated and slam a book down. And he kind of like he helped me to find my humor. He helped me to find the laughter and the funny things that's like, dude, you can't do anything about what somebody else does? Why would you get mad about it? If you can laugh about it, it just helps it to like, you know what? It's not a big deal. It just kind of eases off your shoulders and the world gets better. And so he really helped me to find that laughter in in the public school system, which let's face it is kind of crazy, right? And yeah, and then it turns out like because he got me into running, that helped me throughout the rest of pretty much my life because I ended up going to college on a running scholarship, which was crazy. And so he really helped me. Uh, I've got tons of family members that are just hilarious. I mean, Thanksgiving was singing, dancing, and just telling jokes. I mean, from my uncles who were probably telling the not so clean jokes to my aunts who were like, elementary school teachers who would tell hilarious knock knock jokes that were just stupid, right? They were before dad jokes. That was my aunts telling jokes. Like, why are chickens funny? Because stuff like that, right? Where it's just, I mean, it's just stupid, but they would say it. Like, there's these, they're like older, but like I always had lots of joy and laughter around me, and so that laughter piece and comedy, I guess you could call it comedy. It plays such a vital role in being able to deal with things. If we can laugh, it helps alleviate a lot of situations. It helps alleviate stress and pressure. And laughter, it really truly is one of the best medicines that we have because it just makes everything easier. It really does. Yeah.
This is I love listening to that story, your family story, and so this to me kind of leads to the next question, because you say like how well the next question is how do you think laughter and humor have like impact on like company cultures or like workplace?
Oh man, this is well, let's face it, the world we live in right now is kind of crazy. We are so far divided on everything,
Mm.
right? We've gotten away from being able to have civic conversations about, religion and politics because people are like, oh, you can't say that because it's going to offend somebody. Well, you know what? Comedy originally, like, think about the history of the world. Comedy was the great equalizer. We had the court jester. That was the person that made fun of the king that would normally get you killed, right? And when we started to get away from laughter, when we started to make things, for lack of a better word, so politically correct that we couldn't offend somebody, people
Mm.
started getting a lot more sensitive. And I'm like, okay, cool, but life is kind of offensive. Life itself, if you live long enough, at some point you're going to be offended by something sometime somewhere with someone. Like
Mm.
there's no getting around it. In the workplace though, comedy and laughter are ways that we can deal with the additional stress of things, right?
Mm.
We can laugh together around the water cooler. We can have those moments where we share little jokes that we giggle about, that we go right, and we send memes to each other and that kind of stuff that like they alleviate some of the stress that people are under. And people are under way more stress now than they ever have been before, especially post COVID with like trying to integrate back into work and stuff like that. Workplace is a challenging place to be. And a lot of people are like, some people don't want to go back. I think more people would want to go back and actually do office work and be in those organizations if they were allowed to have more fun, if they
Mm.
were allowed to laugh more, if it was a place where they showed up and they got a daily dose of laughter and they
Mm.
got to meet people and talk with people and hang out with people that they know, like, and trust and that they enjoy their company. Work is no longer something I have to do. Work is something I get to do.
Mm.
And those people are going to be far more productive, far more engaged. They're going to be the people that really drive your company forward. So as an organization, it pays to actually have happy and engaged employees. And everybody knows that. It's just people don't really want to, they don't want to invest the time and effort and energy into making the workplace fun and engaging, which is, you know, that's where I come in. That's the like pretty much most of my business.
Yeah, this is, I mean, yeah, one thing you said about, comedy and like being so correct, and like I remember reading something about John Cleese, which is one of my heroes, like, one was one of Monty Python. He said that he basically stopped doing comedy in the colleges because of that, and also, about being offended, that people feel like, oh, that's offensive. Well, there must be in comedy sometimes there might be a little level of offending something or somebody, and his point, which was very interesting to me, is really about he said I get offended every morning when I read the newspaper, like all the things I see they're very offensive, right? Life in general, things, the word out there, it's offensive, right? But his point was really like. Um, how do you manage your own emotion when you're dealing with something like that? I think yes, comedy can go from one extreme to another, but it's really like how do you receive it and what do you do with your own emotion when you feel like there's something out there that it's offensive. I think
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that you work with businesses and you help them in many different ways, so I just want to I'm curious about, what kind of challenges do you help businesses solve, like through playfulness and laughter and humor and maybe you can share with us some like an experience that you had.
hmm So it's really interesting. So one of the big things is that generally communication, because organizations go, we need to have better communication. We need to have clarity.
Mhm.
But what does that mean? Like just helping them to define what does clarity mean? What is it? Great. Okay, clarity means everybody understands and is on the same page. Great. Here's an exercise you can do. I need you to get all your team together, and as a group, you need to come to a consensus. Now, a consensus is different than a majority, in that the majority, if you have 5 out of 7 people and they all agree, then the other two, sorry, they lose out, and the 5 people get their way because that's a majority. A consensus means 100% approval. Everybody has to agree. And you give them this task and you say, great, we need to come to a consensus as to what is the best fast food restaurant. Okay, good luck, go. And you immediately see how ridiculous communication can get because and it's like, oh my gosh, we can't come to a consensus on something like that. And I said, okay, well, how about this? How about the clarity? If you want everybody to be going in the same direction, how are you going to get them there? Are you going to make sure that everybody gets exactly what they need and everybody gets exactly what they want? Because honestly, I want $1 million for sitting on my butt and doing nothing. Is that going to work for you? Probably not. So, how do we move forward with getting people to buy in? How do we get people? So part of it is having the communication and the ability to get people on board and say, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm committed to it. And I wish I could say this was my thing. No, it was who was it? It was Amazon. Who's the owner of Amazon? Crazy billionaire guy. Jeff.
Bezos, right? Just
Yeah.
Bezos.
So Jeff Bezos he was in a meeting at one point in Amazon, and he was having a very heated debate with his team of his big executive team, and they were arguing over which direction the organization should go and what they should do. And he, as the owner, says, I don't think this is the right path. I don't think this is where we should go. I do not think this is what we should do. But, and this was a big but, and I think this says a lot to the organization at the time. He said, but you guys have followed me and always done the right things that have made our organization successful. And he goes, I disagree with how we're going to do this, but you guys have never steered me wrong before. So I disagree, but I'm committed. Let's do it. And so even though he disagreed with how they were going to do the next thing, he committed to it. If organizations can get to the point where they have the team members who are very passionate about trying to move the needle forward in the organization, and they can fight about it, they can argue about it, and at the end of the day, if they come out with a plan and everybody says, I may not agree with it 100%, but I'm committed to it, the organization will move forward. And it'll move forward a lot faster than organizations that go, yeah, sure, okay, cool, I'm good. And they agree to it, but are not committed to it because then the work doesn't get done and they just do what they were doing before. So a lot of times helping the organizations get people to that point where they say, I am committed to this. Cool. You say you're committed. What does that look like? What change in behavior is now going to happen because of you are committed to the things that we've agreed to today? And helping to gain that clarity and having people go, oh, that means I have to change. Cool. How do we change? And then you're into like coaching because change is hard. Change is hard, but change is also inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what, whether you want it to or not. Change is going to happen. So if we can adapt to it and change our behavior to be best suited for the organization and for ourselves, that's alignment. And then if we can get alignment, then boom, your organization is like goes right up the chain and really fast. So I try and help organizations gain that clarity and get people on the same page so that they understand here's what's needed next. And oftentimes I'm not like a planning expert. I am not a business guru, anything like that. I understand people. And so I can talk to people and I can figure out here's activities that we can do where we can have conversations that actually help your people to understand we're on the same team, that we're not fighting against the other departments. We're all one organization. We got to work together to move the needle forward. And if we can do that and everybody can go, yep, I know my part. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's go. And then they can go from there. So it's
That is great. And I bet sometimes it's not easy, right? Because I believe not everybody's willing to change, or not everybody's accepting that. Or I think the main thing, a lot of folks that are not even aware that something is happening, that they need to change, because maybe they got stuck, operating system. They always been
yep.
done things in the same way, and they think that's the only way to do it. Maybe because they have no training, because they
Yeah.
have no tools
Yeah.
or resources,
It,
right? I don't know. So I heard you writing
I
a book. Is
am.
that correct? Oh my gosh, this is great. This is unbelievable. Congratulations.
Sure. Yeah.
Would you like to share a little
I'm
bit about your book with
writing.
us?
I'm still debating on whether it's a leadership book or a life book in general. So I'm gearing it
Mm,
towards the CEO executive groups or managers, high level managers, of how do we get our teams on board? How do
mm,
we play? How do we have fun? How do we engage them with joy and laughter? And
mm,
a lot of it are stories that I've actually been privy to or been a part of in my life or through my family or through working with organizations. And then I basically ask like, great, this happened to me. Have you ever had something like this happen? What do you do about it? How do we make a difference? And it's just, a lot of them are kind of funny because, I mean, for those of you that are listening to this and can't see, I've got a gray Santa beard, and I was born in the 1900s, so I know some stuff. And so way before electronics and cell phones and everything like that, we had some pretty epic adventures. And so I have a lot of stories from that time that I think could bear some fruit today. It's how we connect really truly as human beings is sharing time together. And it really is the joy and laughter of the moments that we share, the experiences that we have that bond us together as humans. And so how do we take those moments? How do we have more of those moments in the workplace? How do we have more moments in the workplace and out of the workplace? And what
mhm.
do we do with them? How do we create teams? It's
Yes.
it shouldn't be that challenging, but it's getting harder as
Mm,
technology advances and we get more connected and yet less connected at the same time. We
yes.
don't get the depth of connection. We get lots and lots of connection, but nothing really deep. So those
Mm,
relationships that we have, whether they're from work or from childhood or from your friends or communities outside of work, those relationships are really important because those
mm,
help keep us afloat. And if you can provide those relationships at your place of work, that's like a win-win. And if you get like profit and you get people living and engaged in the process and they love their job and they're making a good living, that's like win-win-win. And then you do something good for the environment, you give back to your community, win-win-win-win-win. You just want to stack the wins. Like we can do that. We got to do it together. And joy and laughter
yes.
is the best way to make that happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love it. And sometimes I think like, sometimes we forget that things are like, maybe things are simpler than we think, right? And maybe I often say, we forgot about it, about the simplicity itself, right? That
Mhm.
things don't have to be overcomplicated sometimes.
Yep. Yep. The simple is profound. It
Yes,
really is.
yes.
Yeah,
Less is more, right?
absolutely.
um, And so one last thing, okay, maybe can you share, like, let's say I'm a manager or I'm a CEO that wants to, bring more playfulness and more humor or more laughter in my company. Can you give me like one simple advice or one simple thing that I could do? I
Ooh,
know, like it's a big thing. I know you have
I,
a lot of like background and stuff. I know that question is like, oh, one thing, oh, well, oh, just one something that I could do,
I think, you know, I I have a leadership podcast. I've been doing it for like 3 years now.
There you
And
go.
so we have this podcast and we talk about all the time, like, what are the things that leaders can do to be better leaders?
Mm,
And typically the number one thing that we always come up with is to be aware of your people. So that
mm,
means you have to get out of your office and you actually have to go out and interact with the teams. You have to know who they are. You have to know, their friends, their spouses, their families, their boyfriends, girlfriends, like the things that are going on in their lives. If you know your team as human beings above and beyond just who they are to you in the workplace, I think that makes the biggest difference. If you know them, their families, then you understand where they're coming from. You understand the stresses that they're going under. If somebody's, wife is cancer and they're dealing with that and they're trying to come to work and you're like, well, yeah, gosh, you're not getting your stuff done. Well, yeah, because your wife's, dealing with chemotherapy or something like that. You have a little more empathy. We have a little more forgiveness and a little bit more compassion for the people that we work with. And we would hope that if you share that compassion, you share that humanity with other people, that it comes back to you as well. And that creates a community. And when you have that community, you're clearly going to be more successful. And so I think that's the number one thing is like really plug into your people, plug
mm.
into the people and be fully present with them. It's not just about the business. Business is a part of it, but it's not all of it. So the
Yes.
people are the most important thing. Your number one asset in any organization is the people.
Right. So real human connection, right?
Yep.
This is great. I want to thank you so much for, be a part of this and, taking the time to be in my first podcast episode of like Laugh to Laugh. Thank you again. And once again, where can people find you out there?
Uh,
Can you share it with us?
let me see here. They can find me on LinkedIn, Geoff, that's Geoff, Professionals at Play on LinkedIn. At Instagram, I'm at Professionals at Play. I've got the No More Leadership BS podcast. And then I'm working on my YouTube stuff. Apparently I've done a lot of things. I just haven't collated them and put them on there because technology is not my thing. People are. So or you can
That's a
find me
good
at the
thing.
on the good old interwebs at www.professionalsatplay.com. And
All
they can
right.
get through there if they need to.
Well, thanks again. Thank you again for your time and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. That was a true pleasure.
Thank you so much and congratulations. I heard you just did awesome at the NSA Speakers Challenge.
I
First place.
did. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
And,
you.
and People's Choice. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well,
All
thank you
right.
for having me, man. I appreciate it. Blessings. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
All right.